On December 4th, IONNA held its first official media day at its Durham, North Carolina corporate headquarters and quarterback lab. During the day, we heard from corporate executives as well as representatives from the founding members of IONNA, and everybody there pretty much made themselves available for interviews. The day kicked off with a discussion panel consisting of 5 IONNA executives. There was Seth Cutler, the CEO, Ricardo Stammati, the CTO and CPO, Aaron Wolf, SVP of Strategic Partnerships, Dan Bryant, SVP of Site Operations, and Phil Retsch, IONNA's Chief Engineer of Charging Technology. Each executive took turns at the podium to discuss IONNA's plans and their strategy to implement those plans. And at the end, there was time left over for a Q&A session with the pool of journalists on hand. Now, I had initially intended on including this discussion panel in a video that I'm doing on the whole day's event. So there's going to be more than one video on my experience at this media event. But this went on for so long, it's like an hour and a half long, that I figured just make a standalone video of this discussion panel and let people consume that. And then next I'm going to put out my video with talking to different executives and so forth. As I said, this is a long video, so you got to be an extreme charging nerd or really interested in what IONNA has to say about their plans coming up to really want to sit through the whole thing. But I mean, I'm a supercharging nerd, so I found it really interesting. If you've gotten this far into the video, maybe you are too. With that said, let's get into it.
But I really wanted to give you an opportunity to talk to really the leadership team of IONNA in terms of what we're doing to drive the company forward and deliver something special in the marketplace. And when you do it from the lens of trying to put the driver first and the customer first, it drives the company towards something special in the marketplace. And I think you'll see that when the team goes through in terms of what we built so far. And really the ethos of that, and you've probably heard us say this before in some of our news interviews, is really around how do we provide to drivers the coverage they need, the reliability that they deserve, and the amenities that they crave. And what I want to do today in this discussion over the next couple hours is really have the team walk you through a deep dive of each of those aspects of the business and what we've built. And then what you'll see this afternoon, I'll walk through the agenda real quick. What you'll see this afternoon really is a deeper dive beyond just what IONNA's done, but what our partners have done with IONNA. And I think that's really what's going to be special here today, is not just for us to talk about how many sites and a particular location, but the entire ecosystem that makes IONNA special. The superpower of IONNA is the fact that it's not just us, it's us as a force multiplier with 8 automakers and retail partners and technology partners, and the wrapper that we put around it to deliver something for drivers that fundamentally is different than what others have done before. And look, we're still in our infancy, right? We don't have network-wide scale yet. It's right around the corner. We'll show you that, kind of a sneak peek of what you're going to see on some maps and stuff we've never shown before. But we are moving, as I said before, we're moving at IONNA speed. And I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised about how fast we move and how big we become in a short period of time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Ricardo. The way this will work is we'll do 3 presentations on amenities, coverage, reliability, and then we'll do a panel Q&A for all of you to ask questions and go deeper with us. All right? Mr. Stammati.
All right, I'm up. Thank you, Seth. Microphone situation, am I already on? No?
No.
Okay. All right, good to go? Thumbs up? Cool. So, like Seth said, we're starting at amenities you crave. Like Seth said, we have a mission that you already heard, right? Is to give drivers the reliability they deserve, the coverage they need, and the amenities that they crave. Before we talk about the mission though, I'm gonna do a little bit of an origin story, revisit, because see a lot of new faces here, on IONNA itself, right? So as you know, we have automaker DNA, and you're gonna meet a lot of those automakers today. Some of those automakers are in the room. Is 8 of the biggest companies in the world that got together, and then they really drove the vision from where that mission comes from. And that vision is super simple. It's really to open North America's roads to EVs. That's it. That's what we're here to do. We're gonna do it that way, and we're about to cover one of those first 3 pillars, right? But also, you'll notice something else that is different from IONNA, and it's our brand. Proudly sharing some merch, wearing some merch today. Shameless plug on shop.ionna.com, which again, it's like we see that vision of opening North America's roads to EVs to be multifactorial. We took inspiration from really North American history, Americana. That's what you see ooze through our brand. There's nothing new under the sun, there's a saying, right? And as you look at how this country has gone through transportation revolutions time and time again, we noticed that when the automobile was first introduced, it looked very similar to what has happened with EVs, right? Like the first charging stations for automobiles were effectively gas stations that came to your local sundry and drugstore. And when you had those early influencers, those early pioneers that bought their first motorized carriages, right? They would actually drive no more than just maybe a couple of miles to go get fuel from where they also bought, for example, their medicines or their food, right? And that's the first phase of how that gas network sort of started in America with Standard Oil, et cetera, right? And then comes the National Highway system under Eisenhower, and all of a sudden, that cool product that you had, that motorized carriage, could take you across the nation. But then you had that question, it's like, well, can I? Does this thing have the range? Where do I fuel up? What brand do I trust as I leave my comfort zone, right? As I leave effectively the pharmacy, and now I need to find another pharmacy. Who's the pharmacist, right? And that's where national and to an extent global trusted brands grew. This is not only a US North American phenomenon, right? The Michelin Guide, and it effectively was born in Europe to answer the same question, and then it grew to be what it is today, where it tells you not only where you can fuel, but obviously everybody knows it because it just defines a great stop, right? So that was the inspiration for how we wanted to open North America's road to EVs. That's why our brand is considered a strategic asset. That's how we want to connect to you. That's how we want to connect to the drivers. And ultimately, that's also how it all gets embodied on our actual sites. So to make this a little interactive, you guys know that we don't call sites sites or stations stations. Does anybody know what we call them? Rechargeries. Very good. And how many type of rechargeries have you heard we have? Yeah. There's 3 of them, right? And listen, on this first push to 100 sites, the 1,000 bays, right, that we've been making this year, been hearing a lot of people talk about, hey, sure, we saw Apex, which if I go down is what we call a rechargery proper, right? So Gardner, and if you guys haven't seen Gardner, I think you're gonna have a chance to actually do a ride and drive and stop by, right? But now we've seen a lot of relays. And let me explain it from bottom to top, and this is a little bit of automaker DNA, right? And we have 3 product types, right? We have relay, which is good, rechargeries, better, and beacons, best. The relay, to explain in very simple terms, is everything you heard me say about how we want to open America's road to EVs, about how we want to be a anchor, a beacon of trust for drivers as they push the limits of their EVs across the nation, you will find at a relay. So what does that mean? That means canopies. Now, the reality is that in some cases, we're gonna have AHJs, or authorities having jurisdictions. You're gonna have real estate partners that might prevent you from, or there's easements, et cetera, that prevent you actually putting a canopy, but we are gonna try every single time. And we're trying different product classes where we have different takes on canopies, so you're gonna start to see. You will see us build some sites where the canopy isn't there at the beginning, but then we come back and do it, as we did it with one of our partners that is here today, Sheets. We came back and built the canopy right after. But a canopy is an anchor point to our experience. The other piece that is an anchor point to an experience is the number of bays that you will find at a site, right? We have a lot of our founding automaker partners here, and in a lot of ways Europe, because of faster tightening regulations, sort of like a postcard from our future self. And we know there are things that have been trying in Europe with doing, hey, a 2-bay or a 4-bay site, which we know is not optimal, which is why you will see us, after I walk you through this whole range, what you'll see IONNA do is on average hit about 12 bays per site with a range that goes primarily between 8 and then you get into 20 plus when you go into our beacons. And then those relays you'll see are going to be between 8 and 14. Now, again, are there some situations where, because we want to go fast and it's very important that we build a network, and we build a network now, where you'll see us deploy maybe 6 and then come back and do the rest? Of course, right? We're building for the future as well. But that reliability that you get because you have more base, and ultimately the power in those base, and as you know, we're deploying leading next generation hardware with a minimum of 100 kW plus charging hardware, which we call dispensers, in every single one of our sites. That is the baseline. In addition to that, I think you've all noticed that as you go to some other competitor sites, you might find those chargers, but maybe somebody forgot to put a trash can. And we've seen all kinds of things. Like you get deployed close to a Walmart and somebody stole the cart of the Walmart and then they turned it into the communal trash can. So we deploy trash cans in every single one of our sites. Not only is a trash can, but then also have an amazing team that makes sure those trash cans are actually serviced, emptied, etc., including also, so we attach the windshield wiper fluid and the squeegees there. In addition to that, you'll see that we will also strive to take locations, and we'll get into that a little bit later, where, hey, the amenities that are nearby, whether it's restrooms, whether it's food, is going to be a key leading reason why you'll see us put a relay where we put it, right? And we'll get into more of that in a little bit. Now, as I move you up to the rechargery, it's effectively all of that, but then there's 2 key differentiators there. So we then have an intentional, at our rechargery app, we have an intentional relationship with amazing partners. As I mentioned before, Sheets is one of them, it's here, right? And then Aaron will get into some of the other partners that we're working with. And that effectively means that as a team, we've curated, we've reached out, we've found partners that think alike, and it's going to be great food, it's going to be great Wi-Fi, it's going to be all the amazing things that you find at places like Sheets, and then we bring everything else to the table as well, right? And in places like that, where historically there also haven't been canopies, we've worked with these partners where they also see canopies as important, because we don't want to give EV drivers a lesser experience than the gas drivers, right? How many times have you seen that you go to one of these great sites and you turn around and you see that the gas pumps are well lit, they have trash cans, they have squeegees, they have a canopy, but the EVs don't, right? That's not what we're about. That's not what builds trust. That's why we go out there and we're making a difference as we open each one of our charging rechargeries. Then on the rechargery proper side, we just call it a rechargery, is effectively, we also know that as we're opening North America's roads to EVs, there's going to be some sites where we actually have to build the amenity. And that's what you've seen here at Apex. That's what you've seen here at Gardner. And you'll see us also do in a much bigger way at our beacons. The first one that we publicly announced that we actually did a groundbreaking is in Westminster, California, which itself is an amazing location. It's only about 10 minutes from Disney. It's right next to an In-N-Out. It's really cool. I'll get into those details in a minute. But I want to pose another question to the room, because as we've gone through our first 100 sites, I think we've heard a lot of people saying, we're noticing you have a lot more relays than rechargeries and beacons. So does anybody here have a guess of sort of like what our distribution here would be from a product class perspective? Meaning, once we build a network at scale, what percentage of our product do you think it's going to be a relay experience versus a recharger or a beacon? Tom, you want to take a guess?
Well, currently you have relays are more than 50% of your sites that are open. But judging from how you're setting this up, I would imagine it's not going to remain that way. So I would hope that the rechargeries accounted for at least 33% of your sites, and the relays would be, maybe 40%, and the beacons would be the remaining percent. I can't do math. But that's what I would shoot for.
Okay.
I would hope that that the relays aren't going to dominate like they've been.
I'm going to take your bet. I'm going to erase it. The relays are only going to be about 20 to 30%.
Wow.
So 70 to 80% of IONNA at scale is up here. It's rechargeries, it's rechargery apps. Wolf is going to get into some of the partnerships, right? That's the meat of the network. The relays are as Seth likes to call it, the connective tissue, right? We're building a nationwide network, which we're also building at IONNA speed. Those relays are required, right? And that's why we came up with that name. It's a relay. It's a relay that's going to be between all these other great experiences. The meat of IONNA is up there. At any given time, especially early in our infancy, you know very well that as you get permits back, you can actually deploy sites on that first 100. Okay, fine, things are going to fluctuate, but that's actually what not only are we working towards, but you'll hear in some numbers already solidified in the contracted sites. All right, then more to that, putting actual names to it, right? What you've seen limited number of rechargery stations. Apex, I mentioned. Gardner, I mentioned. There's Scranton, which is a rechargery at with Sheets, which is the one that I also organically mentioned already. Came back and built a canopy there. Amazing experience. Tom, you and I actually met there. We were just reminiscing that, what was it? We were having two cool conversations just now about how everything you've seen here, including that office, was just open in January of this year. So effectively, none of the stuff existed from a corporate level, nor from the site level, like 12 months ago, which is it's incredible, right? Like sometimes we're surprised as well about the amount of not only speed, but real results. And you and I were meeting at Scranton. I think it was about, again, less than 12 months ago, if I remember correctly, it was December 27th, right? And we opened it up. We didn't have the canopy, and we came back and we did that later. And now it's a smaller and smaller piece of everything that is coming on those rechargeries. And by the way, if you notice here, these are the apps, so these are with the partners, right? So we have Warrenton, we have Lyman, we have Forest Park, Georgia, would be rechargeries, and we have plenty more coming soon. Then from the relay perspective, again, you've seen some great locations here. I'll get into some of the details now. We have Concord open, Cordell, et cetera, and then we have a lot more in San Francisco, Orlando, et cetera, coming in the next, actually some of these in the next couple of weeks. Then to take now a triple click down into the nano. So we have been living with the renders of Westminster internally, and some of our founding OEMs have seen them, and they were all excited about them. And just a couple of weeks ago, we did the California Grand Tour. We open up these renders, and everybody can see them now, right? But what we've never done is really come back and double click and show you what a rechargery beacon is about, which is what I'm going to do now. So Westminster specifically has got an amenity building that, tidbit here, it's almost exactly 999 square feet, because if we went 1 square foot over, Wolf was telling me that we probably needed to add a year more for permitting, so we went right under and it worked out. And it turns out that it's not just enough, but also very contextual for California. Great California weather, so a lot of that experience moved to the outside. So you're gonna have pavilion sitting, you're gonna have a picnic area, you're gonna have covered seating outside, space to walk your dog. It's a great environment. Like I already mentioned, it's a great location, close to Disney. That amenity building itself will have the lounge, will have the restrooms, will be our next generation version of what you can find today at Gardner, which is our just walk out rechargery market. And as a really cool neighbors, is right next to an In-N-Out. And again, this goes back to our amazing site acquisition team and how they take that vision and they ultimately find places like that where what's more Americana than ultimately living, breathing this brand and then be right next to an In-N-Out in California. We love the site. There's more to the site. It really is super easy to spot. So again, right next to the highway, there's gonna be 2 big pylon signs. There's going to be plenty chargers, so 2,400 kW plus capable bays there. Every single one of those bays under a canopy. And then, of course, we already talked about some of the other amenities, but I'll highlight that as you can actually experience at Gardner and at Apex, we also have our special recharger eco-tank unit where you can dispense windshield wiper fluid in addition to also fill your tires. And then if you take that experience, and as I promised you before, we talk a little bit about 2 relays really quickly. So the Corsicana, Texas one, which again, if I start with a neighbor, is located right next to a great restaurant. If anybody here has gone to Corsicana, you actually have to stop at the Texas Smokehouse. Great brisket, great food. It is also clearly visible signage. It also has the canopy. We also make sure that those trash stations, windshield wiper fluids are always ready to be clean, both for your vehicle and for anything that you want to empty from your vehicle on a long trip. And then, of course, it also has the pet waste stations, etc., which the other one that is also a relay, but it's in a great location as well, where you can, again, going back to the site acquisition team and finding great sites where you're just steps away from a Dairy Queen, from a Taco Bell, Munchies and Pizza and Deli right there. Also has the pet amenities and all the other great things that we just talked to you about as a relay experience. So again, more or less what I wanted to show you here is the bookends of what we're doing for 30,000 bays nationwide. That's the other message you hear from us. We haven't come off of that target. And this is what we call the good. And at the other end of the spectrum with the beacons is what we then drive you to best, and how 70 to 80% of that experience would be that better or best in the rechargers or the beacons. Another point, so Wolf is gonna talk to you about how we are building we're opening North America's roads to EVs, right? So we're building this network nationwide, all at the same time. That's why you see us pop up in Abilene, Kansas, and you see us also pop up in Westminster, California, right? We're not going left to right, up and down, we're building everywhere. But the thing about America is that no matter where you are in America, you're gonna find these type of locations, right? So MSAs, which by the way, that just basically means cities. So IONNA is building in cities. And if you were to take an example of that, if we stay here in our hometown, that's what Apex is. Corridor, which more or less explains itself, is you're connecting cities to cities, right? So as you connect Charlotte to Apex, you're gonna see us build stations in between. Hybrids, actually Gardner is a great example of a hybrid. So you'll see that effectively that is outside of the city center, right? But it also is near a highway. We love these locations because it has all kinds of use cases effectively converging. Those are great for utilization, people love them. But then also we've done a lot of work to try to figure out, again, where do people actually drive? And there's all kinds of data, whether you get it from the government or other sources that ultimately tell you that majority of Americans are not really gonna go too often on a very long trip, let's say from Detroit to Disney, right? The majority of Americans are gonna spend their Thanksgiving by driving inside of 200 miles to go visit grandma, or to go to the mountains, or to go to the beach. And that's why vacation corridors are also a key part of the story and why we wanna be there for our drivers as well. So with that, it's effectively a slice of the product, but where you get to find these recharges is just as important, which is why now I'll yield the floor to Aaron Wolf.
All right, so we are at the coverage you need chapter, and I'll give you guys just a brief overlay of where we're building sites, what our approach to the network plan is, and how we're actually acquiring sites. So I don't think anybody has seen this slide before. This has really been an internal slide that we're really sharing for the first time, which is where we're actually building this network and our approach to how we're phasing in the network. And so these 50 metropolitan areas that are listed here were all established with our OEM partners from the very beginning. The goal for us as for our investors as we're building this network is creating a financially sustainable business that also enables EV adoption. And so working very closely with the automakers, we established this list of the top 50 metropolitan areas that we want to be in. And then what's important to notice here is that all of these are with connecting corridors and with the vacation corridors. So we are not just building in the metropolitan areas, as Ricardo noted. We have to build the connecting corridors, the interstates, the 2-digit interstates, and sometimes the 3-digit interstates that actually connect all of these major metropolitan areas. A couple other notes just on the network plan here. We are not building just these 15 metros first, then moving to the next 35, then expanding to the last to close out the 50. You will see us building in all of these metropolitan areas, but what this phasing does, and we're in phase 1 now, think about that as the first couple years of the business. Phase 2 is in the next couple years. Phase 3 gets us to the end of 2030, and that's the end of the 30,000 target. What it does is it gives our site acquisition team areas to focus on, right? So we are trying to build during phase 1 in these first couple years a meaningful presence of IONNA in each of these metropolitan areas. Meaningful presence in IONNA is different for different metropolitan areas. Some metros might only need 5 to 8 IONNA stations for us to think, okay, we've achieved the first meaningful presence here. Others might require 10, 20, 30 stations to achieve a meaningful presence. So as we are building across all of these, and you'll see on the map soon, we've acquired sites in some of those phase 3 metropolitan areas and the phase 2 as well. This gives us areas to focus on. And the first 15, happy to say, we've acquired all of the sites that we need to really achieve the meaningful presence in these first 15 MSAs. Now it's about getting them operational, getting them built live to customers. And we are already well into the acquisition phases of achieving scale in the phase 2 and phase 3 metropolitan areas here. Okay, so that gives us the big picture of where we actually need to build these sites, the metropolitan level, the highway corridors that we need to be on. But highway corridors are really long, metropolitan areas are really big. So then we need to actually figure out, where do we actually build these sites? Where do we try and acquire sites? And so our network planning team, with data scientists that are way smarter than me, have developed a tool for us that enables our site acquisition team to be able to take all of these parameters here, and this is just a list of a handful of them: multifamily homes, access to amenities, daily traffic, all the standard things that you would expect that are going into what makes a good site a good site. Have built this into a tool that's not only intelligent, but is also really simple to use and really easy for our site acquisition team to identify. And if a site meets a score threshold that makes a site good enough to be a part of the IONNA network, to move then very quickly to be able to go and acquire that site. And what we've also done, I'll share a bit more about our approach with channel partners and external partners. We've given our channel partners access to this tool as well, so they can then go out and help us identify sites that meet the IONNA thresholds. So it's a tool that is intelligent, easy to use for our site acquisition team, and we've also then enabled our channel partners that are working with us to accelerate our efforts even more, to be able to have access to this tool, to be able to help us drive site acquisition in a really intelligent way. Okay, so now we figured out the MSAs that we want to be in. We figured out the areas or the highway exits that we want to be on, or the general neighborhoods that we want to approach. Now, how do we actually go and acquire those sites? And so the first approach is with our high quality partners. And so we've talked about Sheets. You'll see some others listed here later, but these are high quality partners that have amenities, they have scale. Many of them have already optimized a deployment machine within their own companies, and we've then worked with them very closely to be able to work through design, picking area on property, establishing lease terms, standard leases, all of that with them. And they're a known quantity that have existing partners, they have existing customers, they have apps that are already driving customers to the site. And so with these standard partners, that's what you've seen probably most charge point operators do to date: signing standard lease agreements, leasing parking spaces for the EV stalls at a site that really already exists. That's great. It's really helpful. It's an easy way to go, generally pretty quick. But I think one of the things that makes IONNA really unique in our approach and gives us a ton of flexibility is the empowerment to go buy land and go ground lease real full parcels of land. And this does a few things for us. So one, buying land is the fastest way to sign a site. Negotiating a lease that's going to be in effect for 15, 20 years, there's a lot of eyes on that. It takes a long time to negotiate those leases, especially when we're working with partners where we're talking about scale. For us to go buy a site, we've bought some of these sites in like a matter of like 4 or 5 days. From us finding the site, diligencing it quickly, and moving forward to execute it, we can sign a purchase agreement very, very quickly. So buying land can be one of the fastest ways for us to acquire sites. And there's a couple other key benefits for us. So one, it gives us almost absolute control over what we actually are building at the site. When we are in a shopping center parking lot or a site host lot, they want to see the canopy, they want to see the design, they want to understand exactly where we're going, how we're configuring things. When we own the land, we can do exactly what we want to do to optimize the customer experience. If we want a canopy, we build a canopy. If we want to make pull-through, we make it pull-through. We have so much flexibility to deliver on the IONNA promise when we own the land or when we've ground leased the entire parcel. That is a real strategic advantage for us. And this is a meaningful part of our site acquisition strategy. So a nice example here is what you see. This is Garner. Some of you will go and see that later today. This is a site we're ground leasing, but what I think is really cool about this too is not only have we ground leased this part that you're seeing here, this represents about half of the parcel that we're leasing. There is additional land on a lot of the lots that we're buying and a lot of the parcels that we're ground leasing that gives us not only flexibility for future revenue streams, but also future amenities to bring in. So we can ground lease or lease out part of the parcel to a retail partner to come in, build a coffee shop. So for us, it creates not only flexibility in the amenities that we're bringing in, opportunities to bring in new partners, additional revenue stream opportunities to make the site financially sustainable, but also for us, this just gives us so much flexibility when it comes to designing the site to IONNA standards. Okay, we need nationwide reach, so we have to be all across the entire country. So finding the partners to work with is really, really important. And not all site hosts are created equal. And so when we look for key partners and key qualities in our partner, we are looking for scale. You keep hearing it from us how important that is. We're trying to go as fast as possible and get as big as possible very quickly. Partners that can embody IONNA speed also. We work with our partners. Our partners know the term IONNA speed. They've started echoing that back to us and that they're trying to move at IONNA speed also. So this has just become a part of the lexicon with our partners. And that they have a customer first mentality also. That manifests in multiple ways, like what Ricardo was saying, is we're looking at areas on property with a partner. It might be really easy to go off to the side of the building where it's darker, but we can create a better experience if we're out in front, and it might be a little bit more complicated to build, might require some additional conversations, but when we have partners that are thinking about the customer first and trying to prioritize where we go on property, are cool with putting squeegees and all of the trash cans out that we're trying to deliver, that's what it looks like for when we're thinking about customer first with our partners. So spotlighted here are just a handful of the portfolio partners that we work with. You'll hear more from Sheets later today. These are awesome partners that embody the qualities that we are looking for. But a really important part of the IONNA portfolio is also the mom and pop landlords that are out there. We think it's really cool and really unique to be co-located next to the local taqueria or next to the local smokehouse, because it's not just about having the big box experience and having the exact same experience at every IONNA site that you go to across the country. We've really leaned into these sites feeling local, and we think that's an awesome part of what we're doing. And so for us to be able to find the mom and pop landlords and the great local taqueria, we work with a lot of outreach partners. I've got a site acquisition team, but it's a small site acquisition team. And so we need to amplify all of their efforts. And we do that through traditional real estate brokers, commercial and retail, that are helping us identify land to go out and acquire. But the other really important piece are our channel partners. And so our channel partners are very experienced EV charging and real estate professionals who actually go out and they find sites for us. They negotiate our standard leases or our standard purchase agreements. We've trained them, so we have a channel manager that has trained all of them on what to look for in sites. They have access to our tools. They know what we're comfortable with signing in leases, help us get all of these signed, and that's really helped us get scale with a lot of the mom and pop landlords that are out there to create a unique and local experience. Okay, so here's what really matters to people, right? Is where are we at? Where are we going? These are not indicative dots on a map. These are the real sites that are in the pipeline right now. So I'll walk through a few of the numbers so that you guys have them here today. We announced, I think it was last week, that we hit over 4,000 bays contracted. That's not like verbal commitments with a partner to say, let's do more sites together. These are real purchase agreements that are signed. These are real leases that are signed. And there are over 4,000 bays now under contract. Of those 4,000, there are 3,000 bays that are in permitting or beyond right now. So these are not just sites that we've said look cool and are great. These are in permitting, in utility applications and beyond. That is 3,000 sites that are in that stage. There are 1,200 bays that are in construction or beyond right now. This is meaningful scale, right? It's been less than 2 years of the business. There are already over 1,200 bays in construction or beyond. 500 of those bays are energized today. And so this is, I think, just a really nice glimpse of where we're at. There are over 120 sites in construction right now. So as we talk about the 100 sites, that's our target for the year. We're not coming off that. It's December 4th. I think I've got 26 days left of this year, and we've got 120 sites that are in construction or beyond right now. So we're still pushing, as Seth says, running through brick walls. We are running through brick walls to get these sites finished. We will be mechanically complete on more than 100 of these very, very soon. And then it's a matter of working really closely with our utility partners to get the switch flipped. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Daniel to talk about the reliability you deserve.
All right, so myself, I'm Daniel Bryant. I'm the SVP of Site Operations for IONNA. I'll try to talk as loud as I can. I'm also joined by Phil Retsch, who's our Chief Engineer, who will be also joining me as a part of this presentation. So reliability you deserve is the topic we're discussing. So we can't talk about reliability today without talking about IONNA's promise. And that's a promise that IONNA's made to every driver to ensure that when they visit one of our sites, they get the best possible charging experience they could have. And so this promise permeates every aspect of our organization as every one of our teams work to uphold that commitment through operational and technical excellence. That being said, we get things can break. We know they're gonna break, right? And therefore, we take an aggressive and proactive approach to reliability, which allows us to get on site and proactively fix issues before they become real issues for our customers. So to do this, we've built a robust maintenance network to handle it all. Within this network, we have a deep bench of highly qualified partners, Alpatronic technicians, and IONNA field-eligible employees. To ensure fast field resolutions, we have deployed a series of regional parts warehouses and fully kitted out mobile vans that allow us to always have parts when needed. Now, these strategies are unique. They give us maximum redundancy and speed to ensure that we can make the most reliable ecosystem for our drivers. So you can see behind me, you have a map of a growing map of field personnel that we've established to support our growing network. As you can see, we've established a robust and well-trained network to match the scale we are deploying right now. But we're just getting warmed up. As we continue to scale, we're growing in lockstep with our partners to make sure we have the coverage to grow as we grow. As we deploy more sites, they deploy more technicians. As a result, today I can have a trained technician on site with parts in a matter of hours. Talk about reliability. Now, having a great network and having parts is all awesome. It's great to have, but it's not just a question of having it, it's a question of what do you do with it, right? At IONNA, we have an extreme bias toward dispatching any hint of a potential issue. My team's unofficial motto is get on site, and we get on site through a variety of different ways. We've built a culture that focuses specifically on being on site as IONNA employees. So we eat our own dog food, we engage with our customers on site. This has a number of added benefits. First, we get to directly support our customers, engage with them while we're there. Second, we get a lot of really great feedback that we can ingest and feed back into our ecosystem and develop a better product day over day for our customers. In terms of bias to dispatch, any indication of a potential customer impact, we're gonna proactively take that station down. We're then gonna roll what we call a health check on site, test the station, fix as necessary, and we won't release that station back to the ecosystem until we know it can fulfill the IONNA promise. In addition to these health checks and field resolutions, we also run a rigorous set of scheduled reoccurring visits to ensure the full end-to-end experience of our customers working as intended. This is not just for the EVSC side, this is across all amenities. So canopy, bathrooms, the full site is working as we like it to. This is collectively, if you think about it, a fundamental shift in how networks operate. To talk in terms of numbers, we have anywhere between 2 to 3 people on site. So right now I have 2 people on site here locally in North Carolina talking to customers. I got another person in Rock Hill right now supporting a site. We also run anywhere between 4 to 5 proactive visits per site per month to ensure that our ecosystem is functioning as intended. And guess what? It's paying off. We're operating right now at over 99% uptime across our sites. Our customers are giving us positive feedback and showing us that we're delivering on our promise. So now I'm going to hand it over to Phil, who's going to talk about how his team has built an extremely reliable technical ecosystem.
So we often get this question, what makes us different? So as you heard Daniel say, we're spending a lot of time on site, and that is intentional. So we're interviewing drivers, we run driver clinics, focus groups, to really ingest what that experience is. And that drives how we better our network and this driver experience. These deep integrations that we have built, one of them is our real-time diagnostic system. And with that, we have gained, I would say, unmatched visibility into driver outcomes, right? So first-time success, for example, alerts for our operations team and so forth. And that matters most when you chasing highest quality. So this insight, it generates a lot of useful data. We want to make sure that this data is accurate, and it allows us to make sure our network is running healthily when we cannot be on site and when we have hundreds or thousands of bays live. And it helps us to really improve the user journey even further and up the echelon on reliability. All of that has been built in-house. And again, it's intentional, and the focus is always on the driver. That's one thing that makes us different. The other important part is the seamless driver experience is another key differentiator for us. We want to make sure that every driver feels right at home when they use our network. We're enabling choice. So we sometimes hear questions about apps. Let's have the drivers pick their favorite tool and method to find our stations, navigate to them, initiate sessions, monitor sessions. So we have deep integrations. Right now we have 7 plug and charge or auto charge systems up and running. We have a lot of integrations with all of our investor automakers. And drivers are really encouraged to use really fancy, really cool tools out there. We're on Google, we're on PlugShare, Better Route Planner, and that is really what sets us apart. These deep ties with our OEM partners that we have, they allow us to really carefully integrate their user journey into our user journey and make it a cohesive whole. And that's because we don't think like one size fits all. So every OEM has carefully crafted their journey, and we are here to enable that. And as I said earlier, like the favorite tools for our drivers is what we want them to use in our network. Our screen flow, when drivers get on site, we kept it simple, we kept it beautiful, and it really helps drivers to get into a session quickly, monitor the session, and then drive on. This is again what sets us apart. There will be even deeper integrations in the coming weeks and next year, so stay tuned for that. More plug and charge will come online, and more solutions that help our drivers again find stations, engage with our network, and really enjoy that promise that we're building. And then on the technical side, when you think about us, we're really a force multiplier, right? So we're the center of this wheel at the hub here, and our quarterback lab is right down here in Durham. But think about this, we have a lab at every one of our OEM partners, and actually at every one of our partners. And that helps us scale, that helps us with speed. Speed is very, very important for everything that we do. We want to deliver solutions quickly. When we find an issue, the turnaround time to us is very, very important. These integrations with our OEM partners, it unlocks very, very powerful synergies, very, very powerful learning. And IONNA is always right there at the forefront of everybody's mind when new products are developed. So think about automakers launch a new product, they launch a new car, there's a new software coming out, there's a new app being launched. It is always done intentionally with us as the network, right there from the get-go. So it's never an afterthought. And maybe talking about speed and testing. We're not afraid to make changes. Actually, we embrace that. We want to make sure that good solutions make it to the market very, very quickly. This year alone, we have released about a dozen software updates into our backend, each one of them making the experience better, bringing a new integration online, bringing plug and charge online, auto charge, all of these features. We iterate with our partners on the charger firmware very, very quickly, and make this product as robust as it can possibly be. Our screen flow and user journey sees constant improvement. We have made tweaks to really ease customers into a session even quicker and even more seamless. So, and as we're moving forward, we will continue to leverage that strength, like that superpower. Again, we're in the center of that wheel at the hub, but all of this is made possible because we are so deeply integrated with our partners, and that's what sets us apart. All right, I think we're going to Q&A.
That's a lot of new information. Let's have it.
Hey, I'm Alex from Motor Trend. Ricardo, I think this question is best for you. I would love to learn more about how IONNA plans to manage staffing at different sites, not only in like how amenities are managed and sites are maintained and cleaned, but especially pertaining to queuing in busy times and also managing drivers who maybe aren't of the level of expertise that certain drivers are or that we are with how to charge optimally. So can you talk about that between all the different relays, rechargeries, and beacons, how the staffing is built out?
Yeah, so listen, I'm gonna do this. So for every question we get, even if you direct it to any one of us, we're probably gonna try to answer it collectively. Staffing, I'm gonna throw your way and I'll probably fill in on how it applies to the different product classes. I think this I need to, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so in terms of how we support the sites today, right? So if you think about it, there's a charging aspect of it. We're doing routine charging, maintenance, visits. As I mentioned, there's a lot of proactive visits associated with that.
Right.
Depending on the size of amenity, we have a janitorial staff that's coming on site, vending staff, other types of electrical maintenance as needed on a set cadence. That's really focused around, I think, your first point, which is around how we're catering to make sure that site's operational and functional for customers. And then, as we go into different months, it's seasonal, right? So right now we're focusing on snow. So we're doing a lot of salting, snow plowing, all the stuff you have to think about when operating a site. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the ultimate model is that for IONNA to truly scale nationwide, right, it's that these sites, as much as possible, are able to be run without somebody being there 24/7, right? And then you'll see us attack that end of the candle, if you will, with ideas like when you see our recharging markets, there are the just walk out guy. Now, that means, like you just shared, Daniel, that somebody still has to go there to restock. Somebody still has to go there to take product that is expired out, right? Somebody still has to go there to make sure that the systems are a go, and that means they're gonna have, depending on the product type, more visits or less visits per day, but that there's always somebody checking the pulse of our sites nationwide. It's the ultimate goal here, which again, you also asked, how does that vary as you go from a relay to a rechargery to a beacon? You'll see more visits because there is more breadth, more amenities as you go up. Also, as we work with our partners, right? There's a lot of synergies there, and I'll give you the example of, Sheet Scranton, where we were there on December 27th, and I had a plow in my hand, and Eric's team had a plow in their hand. They were making sure that the site was open, obviously not just for the EV charging side, but also then synergistic at what they're ready to do for the gas side.
that was another kind of follow-up question I had is like, if you are working with Sheets, for example, how much of the responsibility falls on Sheets for that management versus IONNA?
It varies partner by partner. With Sheets, I mean, one of the reasons we're great partners are incredibly proud of their experience on site. So, for example, the trash cans that you see at Sheets are the Sheets trash cans. Sheets effectively say, hey, we got you there, IONNA. We'll just effectively expand what we're already doing a couple of feet over. Different partners will work differently, but that's for one contextual example of how it works with Sheets.
And regarding IONNA specific stations, are these going to be employees, contractors, a mix of both?
It's a mix of both, right, as we go nationwide.
Do you see like there, at Beacons, for example, there being like a dedicated on-site, staff manager for the whole place?
We'll see where we go. We're certainly going to start that way on hypercare. Go ahead.
So as we achieve specific densities in areas and key demographic and key regions, we're then going to go drop in our own field techs. We're starting to do that. We'll release more about that probably pretty soon. Because that's what's required, right? There's a lot of added benefits, right, to having some boots on the ground that can support us. But we also have a really robust set of partners, right, across, geographically. You saw the map. That wasn't just exclusive to one partner. That was many partners that were supporting us. So we can easily have eyes and ears on the ground in a very short period of time.
And I'll do one more example, which you can see live right now at Apex, and you'll be able to see it Abilene, Kansas soon, right? So, and I think, well, if you mention it, that we also seek these mom and pop or entrepreneurs to work with. And then it's a symbiotic relationship, both in terms of what we bring to them from the charging utilization perspective, but also what they bring to the site, because then they are there 24/7. We train them as well. So in the example of Abilene, Kansas, that's another one where I forget if it was a purchase or a ground lease, but I think, yeah. And ultimately, there is a new restaurant that is going up there that is going to open soon. I don't know if you have already the ability to share when that one's going to open.
Yeah.
All right. And again, that's where you'll see a symbiotic relationship with somebody that is there because it's an IONNA location that was built from the ground up to have that amenity. And it's an independent entrepreneur, but it's there to answer questions as well about charging, in addition to, again, shameless plug, probably some shop.ionna.com merchandise inside as well.
Got it. I'd love if you could dig in a little bit more with queue management as well, especially around like busy holiday times. I know we've all waited in line for an EV charging station, and it's just total chaos. So how's that going to look to make the IONNA experience even better?
Yeah, so I think you have to attack that in stages, right? So one of the problems with queuing is that a lot of sites don't have enough space. Obviously, we're building that into the DNA, into the infrastructure. In addition to that, there are different things that have been tried in the past from a technology standpoint with queuing. You bet that I'm not ready to talk about it, but there's a lot of ideas and future developments deeply integrated with the OEM, so how we can help there as well in the, let's say, queuing or reserving a spot in the queue space. In addition to that, we think signage is incredibly important. Where we pick the sites, we think of not only where the bays are going to be, but is it easy to navigate to the site? Is it easy to actually? And if you go to Apex, it was built that way, so effectively you can have a long queue going out to the side of the site. So right now, what you'll see that we're ready to attack it with is what we built into the DNA, into the infrastructure, into the bones of the system, with the infrastructure answer, the signage answer, the where we picked our locations answer, and sort of a second step to that tango will be on the tech and integrated approach answer for that, which we'll talk about in the near future.
Very good, thank you.
So I think it's awesome how you guys have supported not needing an app to charge, which a lot of us appreciate. However, we get from our commenters a lot of questions saying, hey, we love charging at IONNA. How do we just find IONNA sites? So what's the best way to just find IONNA sites that you're recommending? And will there ever be an app, or are you sticking to no app?
I'll never say never. I'll start with your last. I think order operations matters, though, which is why we've doubled down on what we've also heard from customers. And you heard Phil say that we do focus groups, we do clinics. I think you guys have been to some of them, including the one that we did first at Apex, right? What we hear time and again from customers is they really do want that eureka killer application. There's the one app where I can do vehicle features, where I can find charging stations, where I can find more information, frankly, than you can normally see in an automaker app today about those charging stations, like what is the reliability, what are the nearby amenities, if I have a discount, what is it? Can I clearly see what discount did I get after I finish my charging session? So IONNA has doubled down on trying to give customers what they think is the pie-in-the-sky true North Star scenario, which is why you've seen us prioritize working with our founding partners to enable more of that optimal experience, whether, and sometimes it's even better if it doesn't include an app once you're there, right? It's just plug and charge and auto charge. So that's where we put most of our focus. We try to be laser focused. IONNA Speed is also about having the right focus. That doesn't mean that we're not going to do our own app. It's just that this is just the result of the order of operations.
One follow-up to that would be, there's some charging hardware pretty popular in Europe right now where even if you use a plug and charge or a tap to pay, you're able to remotely monitor the charging session through a QR code. We're in a unique case because I'm often driving a car that's not mine. If we're testing it, I don't always have the app. It's great to have remote monitoring. Is that something that is possible to support?
It's in the roadmap. I think I know who you're talking about in terms of that charging hardware, but there's another great charging hardware partner that is in this room that can also do that now. So, yeah, cool. Pipeline.
Thanks.
On site selection, like one of the things that you mentioned was where your competitors are at, which can mean either two things. You're looking where they have gaps, or you're looking to where you can be across the street or down the road from them. So sort of which direction are you guys looking at, or when there's competitors in the area?
Yeah, I'll take it. It's one of the factors, and a part of the tool is how we're looking at, where we think about site selection, and we look at where other partners are going to be, where we're planning on being also. Honestly, I think there's pros and cons, right? Like for sometimes, and we are co-located near other charging partners sometimes. Sometimes it's really advantageous because they're experiencing queuing. We're launching with NACS and CCS connectors, so we can accommodate all vehicles and any kind of overflow. And there's also a lot of existing charging sites out there that are lower power, smaller sites, and maybe only deployed 100 kilowatt chargers, old 50 kilowatt chargers. There's a lot of behavior that's been created over the last 5-10 years with those charging sites, and for us to be able to go nearby and bring a 400 kilowatt NACS CCS experience, more stalls, can be really advantageous for us also. So I think it's good for us to make sure we have geographic coverage, and we want to make sure sometimes there's a huge advantage to us in going into locations and geographies where there isn't any competition at all. And in other cases, it can be really advantageous to be close to some of the older charging stations that might not be delivering on the same level of IONNA.
And if I could, before Tom, sorry. As far as like monitoring the network and the sessions that are out there, one of the things, and I'm sure like all of us that drive EVs a lot, we know that some other networks will brag about their uptime and like how many good sessions they've had. But we're always curious about how that is quantified, because we've all been there where we may try 3 stalls, the last one works, and they're like, yes, you were able to charge here. Are you tracking like those charge sessions? And then sort of like related to that, like, are you working with, if you see, and I won't pick on any brand here because the brands are here, but like if you see like one brand that's not working, I'm assuming you guys have really good communications to go like, we're seeing more issues with this brand or whatever.
Yeah, that's great. So if you think about it, I mean, traditionally most networks are using OCPP to monitor, right? We're different. Our difference, and Phil talked about this, is we're taking data sets from, excuse my bad voice, but we're taking data sets outside just of OCPP. So we're pulling off the credit card reader, pulling off the station, pulling a bunch of different data streams to create a more holistic picture and better monitoring capabilities, right? Today, if a credit card reader were to go down at a normal network, no one would know, right? Because that's not feeding through OCPP, right? Whereas we're pulling off the credit card reader logs, we're pulling a bunch of different things that most CPOs don't have access to. So we have so in terms of monitoring, a much more robust way of monitoring it. Your second question was, hey, what are we looking at? Like, can we go tell if someone's going from one site to the next? So we do, right? So we've created this thing on our side called the concept of a visit, right? Where someone can have multiple initiations. So if you were to go from station 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, we can see that, right? And then in terms of KPIs, we're tracking things like first attempt success, plug-in success, charge success. So in that scenario you described, I guess charge success would be a success. First attempt success would be a failure, right? So our team, so the quality team is specifically looking at that, monitoring trends day over day, sometimes hour over hour, and scrutinizing over that experience, right? So and then to your point, like, do we look at trends? That's their whole job, is look at trends. There's two pieces to that. One is using those data sets to actually identify what trends are out there, and then feeding it to our tech team to help improve their roadmap. The second piece is they're going out, as I mentioned, in the field and talking with customers, getting that fourth dimension of data, right, that you can't capture in a typical log message. So that creates this quality flywheel, we call it. We're lab replicating that, feeding it back into our tech org, and they're deploying a fix out in the field, either via new software release, field campaign, or some sort of product change. So, yeah.
That last part of your question, super quick. Yes, with both the founding OEMs, and actually a lot of non-founding OEMs, because another thing that makes IONNA different is we're completely open. And when we say we're completely open, it isn't, oh, sure, you'll see us in Google. We're completely open to all the OEMs, and that's why you've seen us now integrate and launch with Plug and Charge, with Ford and Rivian as well. Of course, more are coming. We also listen to what the founding OEMs and other OEMs tell us is how they measure quality from their end, right? As a confirmation number. In addition to, because they're watching it closely and so are we, right? We collaborate with those OEMs to make sure that we are hitting not only our targets, but their targets as well. So that's the other part. The answer to your question, which I think was around, like, you have good communication with these OEMs, and when you see a specific model or a specific platform that isn't working, you bet that that's what we're doing, and we're doing it not only with the quarterback lab and that multilateral testing network, we're also doing that with the founding OEMs, we're also doing it with more around the industry.
Maybe one more. Maybe one more quick thing to add. We want to get ahead of issues, right? So one of the superpowers is we have 8 founding partners and everybody else out there. We want to make sure that everything is fully tested end to end before it ever hits the market, before a driver gets into that vehicle for the first time, before that app is launched. There's a lot of engagement between us and the automakers. They come on site, we go there, we do tests, and the testing doesn't stop after the launch happens. So this is where we go on site and this concept of hypercare. Something new came to the market. Let's be extra vigilant about that new thing. And it could be a new feature that we launch. It could be new software that we rolled out. It could be a new vehicle platform. It could be a new app. It could be a software update from the automakers. We want to be on site. We want to make sure that our real-time diagnostic systems can capture all these new things that could happen before everything is launched. And that really enables us to not chase problems, but get ahead of them.
So there's 4 electric pickup trucks available, basically, and maybe 5 if you count 2 different ones from GM. None of them are selling well. Part of the reason of that is it's nearly impossible to tow long distance with an electric vehicle today because we don't have pull-through stalls. You guys are a year in now. I think you have 2 pull-through stalls open, maybe 3. That's less than 5% of the stalls you have open. Looking forward, do you have a goal with what percentage of your locations will have pull-through stalls? Because not only pickup trucks tow, but a lot of different electric vehicles, electric SUVs tow, and people need to do that. But it makes long-distance travel in an EV impossible if you have to disconnect your trailer and move it around to plug in. So can you give us some guidance in a rough percentage of what your sites are going to be with pull-through stalls?
I'm going to be fully honest and transparent. I don't have a target. And you saying this probably makes me think we actually should have a hard target on it. We don't have a hard target now. What I will tell you is that we are intentional about pull-through. The same effect that you've seen, that just how the percentage of relays to rechargeries and beacons looks a little different with the first 100 sites and what we're actually already on the road to deliver with the contracted sites, let alone our targets. You see with the pull-through, so there's more pull-throughs coming. In fact, I'll double click on something that Aaron mentioned. that's why we're intentional as well in our strategy, that we're not just leasing parking spots and then turning them into charging spots, which then comes with a lot more constraints. And normally one of those constraints is you can't do pull through. There's a significant amount of our portfolio where we actually either ground leased, like at Gardner, which is one of the ones that you mentioned has pull through, or we purchased the land that will give us the ability to do that as well. So we are intentional about pull through. Pull through will be a significant amount of the base that we put out there. We haven't seen that at the beginning because, quite frankly, what we've learned is that it is tough, right? It is tough to fit it in. It is tough to ultimately get the permitting if that ultimately results in test fits that are wildly different from what everybody else has been doing. They're coming. They're just lagging a bit. I just don't have a hard number to give you, and I don't want to sort of call one out now that maybe I can't meet, but I hear you, and we should probably come up with a target.
Okay. And you're going to see more of them because what you'll start seeing more of too is Garner is an old gas station. Apex was an old gas station. You're going to see more of those that we've purchased and that we've ground leased and that we're converting into EV charging sites because they're already set up for it. Many of them have the canopy there. The layout is there. As Ricardo said, it's so hard to do a pull-through configuration at a shopping center or convenience store that's already configured like that. But you're going to see a lot more of the existing gas stations that we're converting that have that capability.
Okay, and following up on Kyle's question about the app, I'm also glad that we don't have another app to deal with, but apps aren't totally terrible because they do provide information. Kyle mentioned about where to find you. I've had a lot of followers ask me when they found out that there wasn't going to be an app, at least not initially, well, how do I know the pricing from each location so I can decide where to go? How does a customer know what the cost? Because you have dynamic pricing. It's not set across the network. Number one. And number two, have you given any thought to some sort of a discounted plan? Because as we move from early adopters to early majority, now we're starting to get people that don't live in private homes that want electric vehicles. Those people rely on public charging infrastructure. And it's almost a shame that they have to pay twice what I pay at home because they have to use public charging infrastructure without a discounted plan on your network. That's punishing them. And those people tend to be more economically disadvantaged. They're living in multifamily dwellings. They don't live in a private residence. So they're the ones that can least afford to pay extra, and they're paying double. So is there anything in the works to have some sort of a discounted plan for people that are going to rely on your network frequently?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I'm going to start with the first part of your question. Actually reminds me there's another part of the question that I didn't answer. Somebody had asked, like, what's the best way to find your stations and see details about them, right? We're going to be making a lot of updates to our ionna.com site. So that'll be the first place where you'll be able to see pricing plans. Will you be able to see, to your point, we're moving to dynamic pricing. We just did that in Daytona and Houston, and you'll be able to clearly see before you go to the station, not only the price at the peak, off-peak, super off-peak times, but in addition to that, obviously it's the best place to also talk about the amenities, reliability, etc. So there's a lot of changes that are coming to our website as sort of like the tip of the spear, where you should be able to find that information easily. In addition to that, there's also a lot of work we're doing with the founding OEMs, and you heard me mention that. I think that on the founding OEM front, it's a great killer application that from one vantage point, you can do all the vehicle functions, and with a lot of them, you could also do charging, but quite frankly, some things like pricing hasn't been as easy to see. So you're going to be seeing updates from the founding OEMs there that quite frankly, that's also great of what we see, the IONNA ripple effect in the industry. That's a benefit not only to an IONNA station that you can find through a founding OEM app, but also other stations you can find through a founding OEM app. So you'll see more of that coming there. And as getting into that last part of your question on discounts, etc. Listen, you're absolutely right. It's about 20 to 30% of the population, and probably is going to grow as the used EV market gets hotter. There are people that don't really have agency over a home charger, right? Either because they live in multifamily housing, and or even if they actually live in single family housing but they're renting it, they can't actually install a charger. So about 20 to 30% of the population, and probably growing, really needs to rely on public charging. And we're here not only from the infrastructure reliability side, but also on launching those plans. I'll remind you that we had a press release last year, and Catherine could probably remind me the exact month that we did it, where we said that there are going to be IONNA plans coming very soon, and hopefully as soon as early next year, that you'll hear us announce. And again, order of operations, you'll hear us do that with the founding OEMs first, but then as we are open to everybody on everything, PNC, et cetera, you can expect that to be open to everybody as well after that. And that's probably around the time where the hypothesis, the answer for the customer need as well for, hey, it'd be great to also have an IONNA app becomes higher in the order of priorities too, Tom.
Lindsay Van Hully with Automotive News. I want to follow up on the staffing question earlier, and I heard someone mention, the idea of having this 24/7 is that you don't have to have it staffed overnight or, around the clock. What do you do in situations where it is overnight? From a safety perspective, or it's dark and I'm the only person there, that kind of thing. Are some stations going to be staffed overnight? Are there ways that if there's any issue that someone can contact somebody in the overnight hours? How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, as Aaron mentioned, we try to deploy our locations, and safety is a factor within our site selection. On top of that, we're also trying to make sure all the sites are really well lit. So even in scenarios where we detect today, the site's not really that lit as well, we're going back and adding lighting in, which is key, right? If you look at some typical EV charging station in the back of a parking lot outside of IONNA, it's usually kind of dark, a little scary. With lighting, it definitely changes the game. On top of that, our call center runs 24/7. We have a technical on-call staff also running 24/7 parallel. So if someone were to have problems and they contacted us instead of contacting 911, which is probably always the recommendation. We have a support on-call staff to get activated. Funny enough, we have a lot of scenarios where customers have their 12-volt battery dies in their vehicle and they're stuck. And they're really pulling at 1%, and they don't know how to use the station. And so in that scenario, that's the more common one. We actually get activated quite a bit to go guide that customer through that scenario. Some customers call us. We towed customers in certain scenarios. So it's really focusing on creating a really solid customer experience, and we've done that by having that double level of redundancy on the call center side and also on the technical support side. Right, 24/7.
Just talk about access control. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, I think everything you see, right, is very multifaceted, right? So, we have security cameras at some of our sites as well, where we're able to, particularly when it comes back to land control. I mean, I get that idea of IONNA speed. We think about the driver first. It enables us to do things differently in terms of how we come to market and the approach we take. So we deployed security cameras, we deployed mobile security as well. In certain areas where we've seen that there might be a problem, we've actually been able to contract with local security as well, where they can come on site at certain times of the night, or at least are on call, that we have contracts in place. So we really look at, to Daniel and Aaron's point about, one, making sure the sites we're selecting are in places that we feel customers will be safe, and then adding layers beyond that to ensure that there's things in place to be able to protect customers and their experience on site.
What you'll see as well, and again, this is where partners are important as well, right? Because a percentage of our network where we have partners that are 24/7, you effectively already have that on site. But then there's others, and again, if you have an opportunity to go to Apex or Garner while you're here, you'll get to see, and you also see this deployed in our 2.0 with all the lessons that we've learned in Westminster, and then come back and upgrade some of the sites. So it's the secure access in site as well, right? So it's not just a revolving door that's 24/7. You need to identify yourself to be able to go into the site, and once you're in the site, there's a second access control on the restrooms as well, right? So different sites need different things, different, as you said, multifaceted, deploy different solutions for not just different product classes, but also different parts of the country is ultimately how we're attacking that.
A follow-up, unrelated. There were a lot of numbers that you shared today, and I'm wondering if you could just recap the goal of stations and charging bays at the end of 26 and then at the end of 30.
Yeah, so our ambition is to be, I've got one here too, so you're good. No, you're good. Our ambition is 30,000 bays by the end of the decade. That's how the company was started, and that's what we're running towards. Obviously, we'll continue to evaluate. That's the mission we're driving towards. Right now, and there's a lot of numbers to your point that we've thrown out there, but right now we have over 4,000 charging bays contracted. These are actual contracts signed. It could be land purchases, leases, whatever it might be. Of those 4,000, there are over 3,000 charging bays that are in permitting. So over 75% of them, right, are in permitting right now. That means we've already designed it, We've already checked if there's power. We've already worked with the local municipalities to make sure that they can get permitted and they get submitted to permitting at that point. And then the next big number was there's over 1,200 bays in construction or beyond. So that means they're either in construction is done, waiting to be energized, or they're live for customers. And there's 500 plus bays today that are energized. And as Tom pointed out to me, because you can see it, it's very transparent. There are 45 sites live, and Daniel's promised me he's going to get me 3 more today turned on to customers. So that'll be 48. So we're marching very, very hard to get to 1,000 bays live to customers, which was the promise that we made, or our target goal for the end of the year. We still have time to get there, and that's what we're marching towards. Things do happen, but we're running through every brick wall to make sure it's possible. And what's really important too, I would tell you, as we remind ourselves also, is beyond the 1,000 nodes, how do we get to scale beyond that? And what really matters to me is the fact that what we're looking at is significant growth next year beyond that. We've not yet announced those numbers. We'll be coming back on our 2nd year anniversary in February, so in about 6 weeks, or I guess it's 8 weeks from now, with actual target goals that we'll publicly announce for 2026. But what I can tell you is, if you think about where the company's at, the progression, we have this, what we call this wave strategy. 2024 was an idea that the OEMs have put out there about building IONNA. There was 1 employee on February 1st. Today, there's just under 100 employees that exist inside the company. So 2024 was what we call Wave Zero, was build a company and launch a concept. We launched our first 4 sites at the end of 2024 in 11 months. This year, which is what we call Wave 1, which is, hey, go launch the quality at scale. Wave 2 becomes, as Aaron said before, is our first phase. Phase 1 will be complete, which is really the IONNA network fully built out across over a dozen cities completed, along with connected corridors, which means you have a real network that provides customers coverage they need at that point. So that's what we're marching towards, and I think it's, as we think about the here and now of this year, but when you zoom out, there's a lot of stuff that's coming beyond that.
And I think to that point, one of the questions is, obviously there's the dynamic around EV adoption has changed since, even 2024, earlier this year. And I'm wondering how you think about the approach. There's certainly a number of, the charging infrastructure has still been growing. There's still the need for more stations for the EVs that were already on the road. We've had a lot that kind of got pulled forward and, big increases in sales. How do you kind of think about demand maybe normalizing or kind of falling off right now? Does that need for charging infrastructure is still there? So I'm wondering how you kind of see the current market and the dynamics around it, and how you're going forward. Obviously, still going forward, still have plans to expand. Is it like maybe a catch up almost, where if EV sales are kind of declining a bit or normalizing a bit without the tax credit, does that give you time, maybe some breathing space to be able to fill out the network without, while EV sales are kind of are at lower levels than maybe they had been before, that curve maybe picks back up again. And by that point, you've got a bigger infrastructure that now customers will be able to see if they want to purchase an EV a year from now, maybe.
Yeah, look, here's what I'll tell you. Right now, the here and today, we still have a charging problem in the country. Right? Charging has not been solved, right? Whether it's coverage, whether it's reliability, and even for networks like this today, going back to the whole idea of amenities and everything else, of folks feel comfortable and safe when they go and charge, right? So we have a charging problem. I think everybody in this room would recognize that. I think consumers recognize that. We hear that all the time. So what we're deploying today solves that initial problem. Now, to your point, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the world and in the country, and I think no one has a crystal ball in terms of what the actual vehicle numbers will be next year or the year beyond. But what we do know are battery costs are coming down, range is going up. EVs provide a great platform for consumers, and we see folks that drive EVs stay in EVs. So we know EV sales won't be zero next year, and we know that we have a gap today. And so we're building not just for today's customers, but for future customers. And we also think on top of that, if we're successful, and I know the team we have, and you've met some of them here now, you'll see more today. The team that's here is incredible in terms of their dedication, their passion to do this. If we're successful, we think this will also unlock the market in terms of folks wanting to buy an EV, because now they have a network that goes with it that's not just charging, but something much larger than that in terms of what they can do with it.
So I'm curious about the profitability of it, because a lot of EV charging is known for not being profitable because utilization is, at this time, it's still early stages, but it costs a lot and you're spending a lot of money to build out a really big network. So are there other ways that you're able to, say, market maybe the land that you're buying, or do other things in order to kind of get yourself in a position where you can be ahead of everybody else because it is capital intensive? And I know you have a big backing of 8 different automakers, but it's still a business. So how do you see profitability in the long run so that this stays healthy and can remain an operating network?
It's a good question, and it keeps me up at night too, right? Because at the end of the day, this is an investment, right? Which means that there has to be a path to profitability and a path to a long-term success. Otherwise, charging will never work anywhere, right? So it has to make money. And so, we run very efficiently as an organization, and to Ricardo's earlier point about focus, it's very easy for a new company to lose focus, which means you're investing in lots of places all at the same time, but missing the market in terms of investing in customers. So we are very intentional about and deliberate in terms of where we invest dollars and do it efficiently to try to maximize on how many sites we can build, delivering the right quality and experience with as small investment as possible from what's in our core business, from basically headquarters, if you think about it, right? So we're really investing into the sites versus trying to invest in other things right now, which is why when you go back to why we didn't develop an app, quite frankly, we have 10, 12 apps right now, right? We have 8 OEMs, our investors. We work with Ford, we work with Rivian, we've done roaming with Shell, we've done roaming with ChargePoint. We could have built an app. It was one of the first things when we first started the company. Everyone would say, hey, let's go build an app, right? That's what you do when you build a charging company. Go build an app, right? That sounds like an investment. Is there a benefit to a driver? No. We think we could do it a different way. We think we would do it more efficiently. So to your question, we are marching not just towards 30,000. We're not just marching towards scale. We're marching to a place where we can say this is a profitable, sustainable business for the future to deliver value to the drivers and really to deliver value to the automakers so they can go sell cars and support their customers.
So are you seeing that as like you'll eventually just raise the pricing of the sessions, or like what other ways can you make money other than like your partners obviously with the amenities on sites, retail, stuff like that? Are there other creative ways that you're finding that you can make money?
Yeah, so first of all, on the pricing piece, so you guys see the price right now, we've been very competitive in the marketplace on pricing on purpose to make sure we can give access to charging to folks. You have, to your point, you have a lot of folks that live in inner cities that don't have access to L2 or L1 even in their own homes, so we need to make sure we can take care of those folks, and we'll complement that with, to Ricardo's point, things that are coming soon on discounts and programs. I do think, and to your point, we're not ready to announce stuff, but like, because of how we've gone to market, and you see it with the sites we've done already, where we have access to land in addition to our sites, there are things that we are starting to look at as an organization. And so we planted a lot of seeds, myself and the team here, in terms of knowing from day one of, hey, we wanted to buy land, launching amenities, what we can drive traffic to. That might be other things we can do with that in 2026 or 2027. There might be other business models that we can start to explore. But going back to the WAVE strategy, which is a multi-year, multi-generational plan, the whole idea of number one was, hey, let's go build an organization that can go fight in the market to build sites faster than anybody else and deliver a quality different than, bar none, than anyone else can go do. Then step 2 is go launch the network. That's what we're doing now. What you're going to see next year is really a deeper integration with our investors, our automakers, our partners, other OEMs to really enhance that offering. When we start thinking about late 2026, 2027, what you'll start to see us do is flex the next muscle, which is, okay, we do have land that we can go unlock. We do have sites now where maybe there are other partners that we can bring in where we've owned the land that we might be able to generate revenue on. I think that's some of the stuff that Ricardo and Daniel were alluding to is we bought a site in Kansas and Abilene where the business that was there was defunct. There was nobody running the restaurant, and we've actually brought on a restaurateur that will be taking over that operation in the next couple of weeks to the public, right? Well, now all of a sudden I have an annuity stream that looks totally different. So these are definitely things that went into the back of our minds, but we didn't want to start doing those at the same time as launch the network, and that's where companies go sideways or they lose focus on the core mission, which at the end of the day is to provide reliable charging to drivers.
One last thing I'd like to add. So this is not like the AI industry where everybody's spending billions of dollars and hasn't figured out how to, make it profitable. Profitability is very much in our targets and within reach, even without doing some of these other things, even with the current environment. We want to make sure that that's clear.
A lot of them do it because they get a lot of incentives, whether it's federally or through the state, but that helps a lot.
Yeah. But you also don't need to have a big queuing line at high prices for charging to be profitable, right? It's about running a lean operation that, as Seth mentioned, that's where we started. There's no big legacy hardware network here. We don't have 500 employees, headquarters in San Francisco with 100,000 square feet. We will achieve it, and it doesn't require crazy business models. It's in our plan. We have 2, I forget who went first. Yeah.
Sort of a follow-up to the last 2 questions. How how does this IONNA's approach of building beautiful sites with appealing amenities square up against technology development in the EV space, where range is getting longer and charging sessions are getting shorter? Certainly there's, the EVs we have today that require 20, 30, 40 minutes to recharge are going to exist in the future still. But when we're looking at a future as well, where there's, maybe 500 miles range, less than 10-minute charging, that's barely enough time to even, step into the restroom or have a snack. So how does
That's a
IONNA
great question.
see its business model existing when the need for such amenities might
For sure.
be reduced?
For sure. So as you know, eight founding OEMs were part of that big bang, that initial spark in IONNA. So that question was actually asked in the room quite a bit, right? It's like, if we really look 10 years out and all the technology coming in the future, solid state battery, what is that charging time really going to go down to? And the interesting sort of eureka moment is when you go look at the fueling industry, where on average you can probably fill up a tank, unless it's a really big pickup truck, right, in about 3 minutes. What amenities do you find in those gas stations? Over 100 years, that industry grew to give you a lot of things that today we take for granted. All of a sudden, you notice are missing when you go to EV charging, right? One extreme version of that is, you see Buc-ee's, right? Everything they built around what should otherwise be a 3-minute stop. So our answer to that question is, whatever we build will be good enough and still best in class for whether it's a 5-minute stop or a 10-minute stop. But quite frankly, from a technology standpoint, even though I'm not in an automaker, I can tell you that, because it takes years to not only introduce technology into a vehicle, but then ultimately launch it, have that be adopted by all the automakers, and then the car park moves slowly. Right? There's millions of vehicles in the car park today, and all the ones that are being built today don't have that 2 to 3 minute future tech yet, right? So the reality is that for a long time, those stops are not going to be of the 5-minute kind, but even when it is, all these amenities are still going to make it a better stop.
Makes sense.
I think there's another question. You had one.
Did you want one?
I was just wondering if you'd zoom in on the economics of it a little bit, because you hit it with a broad brush, but when I hear, that the primary business model is we resell electricity, we pay 20 kilowatts, or 20 cents per kilowatt hour, and we sell it for 40, whatever that case. When you're putting hundreds of thousands, or maybe close to $1 million into some of these, more into some of these big sites, what's the real break-even point based on even optimistic session counts and kilowatt hour per session counts that you're looking at before this does start to put any of these places into the green? If that's the only revenue stream, then you have all these other overhead costs on top of CapEx recovery.
Well, and I think, look, at the end of the day, right, like return on investment's a pretty easy calculation, right? It's how much it costs to build it, and then obviously what's the annuity stream of revenue coming in. Look, we have been, we won't share the numbers, it's proprietary, but you'd be surprised how efficient we've been on capital, both in terms of how we build the sites, how we run the sites, while still delivering everything you heard today. Right? And that kind of goes into the DNA of what we do, and I think that's just kind of the culture we've built as an organization. So, I think because of how we've been able to be very efficient in the construction, even the sites you'll see today, for those that go to Garner or Apex, you'd be surprised at what those sites cost on the good side in terms of how low they are. And they're great quality sites, right? We think that there's enough utilization in the market right now with the car park to be able to get to a place that's really attractive from an investment standpoint. So this is not like we're building for the come and there's got an amazing amount of growth. There are a lot of vehicles on the road right now, and a lot of people looking for good quality charging that we know we can provide right now. So I'm very optimistic about the business that we built and are building, and the value that we can provide to customers that are looking for a solution like IONNA.
Do you think it takes 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to recover the cost after you pay the overhead? On average?
I won't share that today, but what I'll tell you is we have definitely spent a lot of time, right, before we put shovels in the ground for the first site, looking at the cost to build a site, right, and then what we're projecting out in terms of utilization. And that there was a lot that went into that DNA. It was not an easy decision to go buy an old gas station in North Carolina and remediate the site and everything else. So it makes you become innovative and clever in terms of how you build that location to remove cost out, and then how you run the business in a way that's efficient as well, so that you can protect from an economic standpoint.
Seth, just to follow up again on the numbers. You had mentioned that you have 45 sites open now, and hopefully by
48 tonight.
Well, okay, before you, all right, so that's
Right?
great. So we'll get to hear the gong when we go back over there?
You-
Who's
you
gonna
hear it
bang the
this morning?
gong?
You didn't hear it this morning? We
I
signed
did.
2 more sites.
I
We
did.
signed 2 more sites, and we energized a site, and they hit the gong.
I gotta,
Call the team.
All right.
Tell them to get something done.
I want Kyle to hit the gong. I want to record that. Anyway, no, but getting back to the numbers, you said that you're probably going to be on target or very close to the target, just a matter of days maybe with utilities turning on by the end of the year, which is fantastic, which means, in the first 11 and a half months, you opened up 50 sites, and in the last half month, you opened up 50 more sites, roughly the numbers. You're going to need to actually do better than that next year, better than 50 new sites a month in order to, if you run the numbers to get to 30,000 by the end of the year, you're going to have to average like more than 7,000 stalls per year to get to that 30,000 number. You're still confident you're going to hit that? Nobody's ever done that before. I mean, Tesla lagged way behind that with their superchargers. Electrify America's 10 years in, they have 6,000 stalls open. I mean, you're like tripling what anybody else has done before. That's going to happen?
Look, we have an ambition of 30,000 that we've not come off. We have a lot of things that we're working on in the background strategically that we think there's a path, right? Again, the future is never definite, but that's what we're working towards. And I think what we've been able to demonstrate in how long we've been in a company, 22 months now, right? In 22 months, right, go from literally an employee to where we are, I think is pretty incredible and a testament really to the folks that work on the other side of that street there that we're gonna go back into the building of what they can do. And I tell them every day, you guys are just getting started. Well, I think they can achieve something great beyond what's already been in the marketplace. And it's really driven by the people. An idea of a charging network's not new, right? And that's the thing, I always tell everybody, anyone can have an idea. It's the execution part that's hard, right? And it drives into the ethos, the DNA, the culture that we built. So that's what makes us special, honestly.
And Tom, you said 30,000 by the end of the year. Just want to make sure we're clear.
By the end of
2030. Yeah, we're fast. We're not that fast.
I mean,
I didn't hear that part.
You're going to crest 1,000 in the first year, so then you have 29,000 to make up in 4 years. So that's some serious numbers. I hope you make it, but I mean, it's unprecedented.
Just a technical question. I know the 8 automakers are investors. Do the partners that you work with, Sheets and other companies, do they invest at all, or it's just the 8 automakers?
Correct. Yep. Our investors are the 8 automakers, and you guys will have a chance to speak with them this afternoon as well.
Interested in what you're seeing. I mean, their investment continues, but I don't know if you have a window into kind of the broader industry, but do you get a sense that with the adoption slowdown, has private investment slowed down overall in general in EV charging? Do you still see, kind of to your point earlier about how we're building for now, but also the future because this problem still exists? Is there still a sense that there's private investment looking at EV charging as a place that, is a smart and necessary place to invest right now?
I can start that maybe, Aaron. I mean, you talk to a lot of partners on folks in the industry. You might have some insights as well. I mean, look, I think I can't speak about what other companies are doing. I can tell you, obviously, there's been a lot of starts and stops in the last couple of years here with some shifting winds around NEVI and other things that have slowed folks down. I mean, that's not a secret. What I can tell you is we're continuing to move at the same speed, right? We said what we were going to do almost a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we're continuing to move in that same trajectory. We've not relied on public funding. That's not been part of our ethos in terms of how we're moving forward. I do think it's been a challenging industry with things that have changed on the policy side, but I don't know, Aaron, if you have anything else you might.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think the closest thing to having a crystal ball is 8 automakers who see what the future is looking like and what they're building. And so we keep hearing, go faster and go faster. And so we're continuing to accelerate. And I think what we've also heard is I've had a number of companies reach out with interest in investing in IONNA. And so we are still hearing that in the market, and we're hearing that from people. So there is interest, absolutely, from private investors, but I think it's a question of, is it private investors that are just trying to build 4 sites on a highway hoping for funding, or is it an investment in something that looks more like IONNA and what we're building?
I'm gonna drop the bobber in the water one more time on some numbers. See if I can get something. The idea. I was just wondering. You mentioned you had some really good price ability to get these things built less than other people. We see all the NEVI numbers, and Tesla's able to build stations often for like a third of what some of the other guys get across the street. And they have vertical integration and some of these other things that help. So when you, without having to give any hard numbers, can you talk about some of the systematic or methodological enablers that help you to achieve better pricing than say another third party that's hiring local contractors? Like you guys have a team of contractors or nationwide, somebody that is showing up at every one of these where you can get the scale or some semblance of internal advantage.
Look, what I'll tell you today, it's not going to be earth-shattering to you guys because I'm not going to share too much, right? But I think innovatively, it's the approach that we've taken inside the organization and how we work with vendors, what we insource, what we outsource. There is a lot of stuff that formulaically went into that within the first 4 months of the company's formation, honestly, right? Like, and it goes back to how we focus on where we thought we could add value or where we knew we couldn't. That's why we didn't start with an app, but it is why when we started, it was who were the key hires we're going to go make and how we're going to go after the first sites. One of the first sites we signed was our site in Apex, which I hope you guys have a chance to see. It's a 100-year-old gas station. And I think some people, when they heard that we signed that site, thought we were insane. And the truth is we built it way more efficiently than anyone would have thought. And it was like site number 1. I think it was site number 1.
Site number 1, and faster too. Efficient and fast.
Right. And we had an idea. It was a hypothesis. I think it was actually a hypothesis that the three of us started with around, hey, I think we could buy a piece of land in an existing building and something we could do differently with it. And what you now see is we've done that in other places. And I think what you're now seeing with our first beacon, it's the first time we're going to go build a building because we have a hypothesis that we can do it better and faster and cheaper than how others have done it. So I think I think people underestimate the fact that a lot goes into the execution piece, and that's really our secret sauce is how we execute, how we innovate, and how we drive the organization to deliver value to customers in that way.
We maybe have one or two more because we're wrapping up. There we go, Alex and Kyle. Let's finish up with you two.
Thanks. Phil, I think I understood you correctly that you said IONNA has an on-site lab at each of the partner automakers, right? How does IONNA get these automakers, which are oftentimes direct competitors, to work together to support your shared goals? Can IONNA take the lead here in a way as the most kind of on-the-ground advocate for the customer charging experience rather than like the vehicle side experience?
I think it's both, right? So certainly the automakers have a very vested interest that their driver's experience is fantastic when they visit our sites, and vice versa, right? So we want to make sure that for everybody it works really well. So it's a very collaborative spirit. So the OEMs find things, we find things, we iterate quickly. Again, speed is important to us. If we have to send folks out there to their respective labs, they have sent vehicles and engineers here. It's actually like almost every week we have somebody in to make sure that new features, new products, new software is properly tested. But also we collaborate on findings from the field. So the automakers are pretty sophisticated in measuring success. Be it our own tools to do that, and then we try to recreate issues. Like not everything is happy path all the time. So the secret sauce is how do you bend this path, like this charging path? If you just build happy path, great. But how do you bend all these potential exit issues? How do you bend it back towards success for a driver? So if something goes sideways, does the vehicle and the charger handshake again in the background seamlessly and just restart that session? So having 8 automakers be really integral to our DNA helps us because we have insights, they have insight into our stuff that otherwise we wouldn't have. So again, that sets us apart in terms of quality, in speed to market for bug fixes, new features, and has been pretty a really eye-opening experience, I think, for them and for us.
Direct that, by the way, to the OEM for the panel as well. That'll be great.
And when you direct it to the OEMs, maybe you can ask them if what I'm about to say is true. So I want to add another nugget. Again, it's the IONNA ripple effect in the industry, right? It's a new industry. Some weird things happen. I can tell you without revealing any numbers that when I was sitting on the other side, if you as an OEM wanted to have access to a CPO's lab, that normally came at a cost, and a very significant cost. And for an OEM, it isn't easy to then also figure out the logistics of, well, whether it's a prototype, whether it's a vehicle that it's already in the car park, I'm going to figure out a way to ship it to you, and all the legal documents that have to be signed, because what happens is somebody grabs that car and then has an accident, etc. Here's what we've done at IONNA that actually makes a difference. We don't charge anybody for any access to our lab, because at the end of the day, as Phil mentioned, we see that as, I think you're asking if we could be a leader there, right? It's like, yes, we are. And the way we do it is by opening our lab for everybody. And by the way, that's not just for the founding automakers. Just a couple of weeks ago, Raven was here, Ford has been here. And of course, the founding automakers are here. Why? Because we made it as easy as possible to lower all those barriers from an administrative perspective, but also business models that didn't make any sense. Going back to your point in profitability, we don't need to try to monetize access to a lab to actually go squash or get bugs on the run to make the IONNA business model work. And what you find is that creates a flywheel effect that, well, then if the quality truly is improved, then, well, the customer will come back. That's what we're after. And that's how IONNA is actually achieving it in the marketplace, even when we're just 22 months old.
All right, so fun topic, charging speed. There's only one mass-produced electric vehicle, passenger vehicle on sale today that can charge at more than 400 kilowatts. Obviously, choosing 400 kilowatts seems like the right number for right now. I know Alpitronic's your main partner. However, so I use the Gartner site all the time for testing. And I will pull in weird and open the doors and stretch out so that no one pulls in next to me if I'm trying to do a charge test or something like that. All-in-one chargers have their place. I don't really see them at large-scale charging parks. Is there plans to support not only higher power, but also potentially a centralized power source with distributed dispensers? I saw Mike from Alpi somewhere around here, so maybe we should wait to hear from him. But what's the IONNA plan in terms of hardware? And last point to that, sorry, are you evaluating other hardware partners beyond Alpitronic?
When you talk to Mike, tell him I'm still waiting for that next gen hardware, because what I'll say is, just like I just told you that our lab is open to multiple automakers, is open to our partners as well. I'll tell you that you've heard me talk about, and Seth and the whole team has talked about, focus and order of operations. We've intentionally so far tried to concentrate all our resources, all of our time, all of the complexity, especially as we have, to be honest, very hard quality goals out there, to make that just a little bit easier by concentrating on one hardware partner. I think that as you look ahead and strategically dual sourcing some things, nothing to share on that right now. It's just, I hear you, it's sensical. Right now, we intentionally are concentrating on one partner. And you mentioned that vehicle. I think as well, there's a couple more vehicles on the horizon that are likely capable of doing more than 400. Some of the automakers here have already announced them. And I think that if you put three legs on that stool, right, we're working with the automaker, we're working with a hardware partner that has that capability, a third leg on that stool, I think you're going to see that as well. So the answer to that is yes, in terms of distributed architecture and higher power. We will always be, it's in our DNA, and even if we didn't want to, our founding automakers are going to push us to meet them where then the best capability of the vehicles they're putting in the marketplace is going to be at. So yes, considering it, yes, it is in the roadmap. Our intent is that whenever you see things like that hit the marketplace, at least in North America, you'll see them at IONNA first.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. That's kind of the morning portion here. IONNA talking about IONNA. We'll save the afternoon for partners talking about IONNA.
All right, well, if you're still here, then you qualify as an extreme EV charging nerd. And that's a good thing, because I'm one of those people also. I am going to follow this video up with at least one more video of my experience on Media Day, including some interviews that I conducted with some of the representatives of some of the founding members. But I think I've taken up enough of your time here today. Listen, if this is your first time here at State of Charge, Please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming electric vehicle news and reviews. And as always, thanks for watching.